Hey guys, it's Health Nibble number 45, and kind of running out of little quick tips, so we're gonna start getting a little more technical, which is good. So you have a further understanding of health and disease and where it all comes from. So today, I'm just gonna talk about a real quick point on cellular health and genetics. Most people think, my parents have a disease or have had a disease, and so I'm gonna get the disease because it's genetic. And most of the time, especially with chronic inflammatory diseases, like your standard heart disease, cancer, diabetes, things like that, thyroid problems, you can pass a tendency down, but usually, in most cases, you can reverse it by reversing the cell health. So I'm gonna cover that a little bit, just one little part of it each time. We might get in next, we might have another one where we talk about epigenetics, which is, really the world that I'm talking about there. But so first thing with health and disease, you can think of it like a three-legged stool. And so if here's my stool.
It's a pretty good stool there.
Is it?
Yeah.
They wouldn't all be the same length though, would they?
Yeah.
From depth perception, maybe that should have been shorter or longer. So on the three legs, so the three things that go into health and disease. So you can look health, health when it's good and disease when it's bad. So one is genetics, genes. Two is stressors. And then three, the third one is going to be leaky gut. I'm just going to put LG to save time, to keep it within my nibble time. So what I want you, these stressors are going to be toxins. We've talked about toxins, environmental toxins, could be trauma, emotional stress is a huge one that drives a lot of chronic disease. That's oftentimes a trigger. We talked a little bit before about leaky gut. It creates a chronic inflammatory response, screwed up immune system. Your type 2 immune system goes crazy and it turns on these genes for autoimmunity and other types of things. And then you have the genetic component. So let's talk, I'm gonna flip this and we'll look at the cell. Whoa. Okay, here we go. So here's a cell. We've talked about this before. And here is a cell membrane. I draw two lines because that cell membrane is called a lipid bilayer, and most people know that lipid means fat, and so it's made of fat, and toxins tend to reside in the fat. They're attracted to fat, so heavy metals, biotoxins, we talked about trans fats the other day, so they lodge in this cell membrane, so these toxins are in here, all right? They lodge in that cell membrane, and then you need this cell membrane. It's really important to get nutrients in and waste out. So you got waste going out and nutrients in. So these toxins lodge in the cell membrane. If you eat a lot of sugar, that messes up the cell membrane and it creates inflammation. And so most people understand, these days, most people know if you say, what's the cause of most disease or what's at the root of most disease? Inflammation. So this is when you talk about inflammation, we're talking about cellular inflammation, inflammation in that cell membrane, and that actually screws up how the cell works, how it gets nutrients in, waste out, hormones. And we're not going to talk about hormones today. We did that on the thyroid talk before. But what I'm going to talk about is genetic expression. So the genes are in each one of these cells, and they determine, that it's your genetic expression, what the cell's going to do. So the interesting thing is that most people think it determines that and that they're pre-programmed, but really they're not. So when you get a bunch of inflammation in here and you get a bunch of waste hanging out in here, you got waste everywhere, nutrients aren't getting in, hormones aren't getting in, this genetic expression can turn from healthy to disease producing. So, and can turn on genes for autoimmunity. So if you saw back on one of the health nibbles where I had Andrea talking about her juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, and then she passed autoimmunity down to her oldest son, and then she figured out how to reverse it, or what we like to say is down-regulate it, because a lot of times when those genes are turned on, you just down-regulate them, and if you go back to your old habits, it comes back. So down-regulate it, and she down-regulated that enough to where she didn't pass it on to her other kids. So that's the idea here. It's just because your parents have it and your aunt and uncle, if it's a chronic inflammatory disease, an autoimmune disease, oftentimes you can change the genetic expression by removing the inflammation from the cell, and that's what our expertise is. That's how we approach these autoimmune diseases and all the common health problems that people have. So we get the cell healthy to get well. Make sense? You have to get the cell well. How was that, Aaron?
Fix the cell.
Fix the cell to get well. Sorry, tripping on my words. So, and when you fix the cell to get well, you change that genetic expression. That's your health nibble.